we're gonna just go through like a basic overview of what ASB is, and then and do a description of the sites a little bit, and then have some testimonials from some site leaders and former participants, and then open that up for questions. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Excellent. All right. I am going to start sharing my screen. Whoa. All right. So this is the alternative spring break info night. If this is not what you were looking for, I'm sorry, but we're super excited to have you here. This is a program that is run through the St. Mary Student Parish and the Father Gabriel Shard Newman Center. So it is run through St. Mary Student Parish, but you don't have to be an active, what's the word I'm thinking of? Gosh. Constituent? No, parish member. Yeah, you can be a student on campus, a Catholic student on campus who's just interested in the program. You don't have to be an active parishioner of St. Mary. But before we dive in, I thought it might be nice to start in prayer. Father Mark, would you like to lead us in a short prayer?
Sure. Let's begin in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, we ask you to be with us tonight. We thank you for the generosity of all the people gathered here, that they have given in the past and that they are ready to do in the future. We ask for an openness to the ways in which you wish to move us to service and accompaniment of others, especially through our St. Mary Alternative Spring Break program. And we ask you to bless us in these days when we face many hardships and help us to be courageous and creative. We ask all this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you. That was beautiful. All right. So we are going to dive right on in. So what is ASB? ASB is an acronym that we use for the Alternative Spring Break program we do with St. Mary Student Parish. It's a program for undergraduate students at St. Mary where participants travel all across the state of Michigan, the United States, and abroad to be in community with people on the margins and learn about injustices. There's a lot of different ways that we make this happen. We have immersion trips and service trips. So when you think of an alternative trip, you often kind of, at least in my mind, you drift towards like a service aspect, you know, like you're building something, you're cleaning something, you're helping out the community in some way, shape, or form. We do have a lot of those trips where you're doing some sort of physical or emotional service. But we also have immersion trips where the primary focus of the trip is to be in community with others, to learn about their experiences and the realities of their life, and be able to carry those experiences that you've had and the information that you've learned back with you to your life and your setting, and then advocate for social change in a Catholic social teaching perspective. And they're also a really wonderful way to grow together in faith, hope, and love, and learn to apply Catholic social teaching to daily life. So a lot of participants in ASB will, you know, just join because they want to make new friends. They want to get out and see the country, see the world, maybe see other places in Michigan. There's a lot of different reasons why people choose to join the program and participate, and you'll hear a lot of those reasons later from some of our participants and site leaders. But yeah, that's just sort of a general overview of the program. Typically, trips will take place during spring break, hence the alternative spring break aspect. But since we don't have a spring break this year, we will be doing trips May 2nd to May 9th. So it's more just an alternative break instead of a spring break because it'll be after the school year. These are some pictures from trips from last year. Down here on the left, we have LA. You can see a few of our site leaders there and Father Mark. And then down on the right here, this is actually my trip last year. We went to El Salvador, which is one of those more immersive trips where you're learning about different things instead of doing actual services. So there's a lot of different ways you can get involved. These are all the sites that we will be having for the 2020-2021 year. So we'll have trips hopefully going to Baltimore, Maryland, Flint, Michigan, Selma, Alabama, which is a newer trip that we're doing, Clinton, Iowa, the Christian Appalachian Project in West Virginia, Zelly's Home in Cleveland, El Paso, Texas, and El Salvador. And this is a picture from LA again last year. We do have a lot of trips sort of end, especially if they're in community with a Spanish-speaking context, with this like gracias photo, and it's really cool to see all the different years back to back. And this is my attempt at adding a GIF from Indiana Jones. The plane's supposed to be like flying all over the place, but that didn't work out. So these are some of the options. These are the options they'll be offering, and we can go into a little more detail about those later if you have more specific questions. We'll be putting out more information about the sites and the offerings on our website in the weeks to come, especially as the application opens up later in the year. But now we're going to go into a little bit of testimonials. I've been talking for a few minutes, and I think it's actually very beneficial to hear from people who have been on these trips, and it's impacted and changed their life several times. So without further ado, these are the people we're going to be hearing from. Laura, would you like to start?
I would love to start. Man, I didn't think I was going to be going first. Okay. So hi, my name is Laura. I'm a junior. I'm going to be site leading the trip to El Salvador this year. So I got involved in ASB when I was a freshman. My sister actually went to U of M and went to St. Mary's, and she went on alternative spring break. And so I was like, I want to do that too. So that's like kind of how I found out about it. One of the things that I was hesitant about for joining ASB was that I didn't know anyone very well at St. Mary's. So I was like, I'm not going to know anyone on the trips. And the couple of people that I do know, they're probably not going to go on the same trip as me. And that was the best thing because I got to start fresh. I got to just jump in with this group of people that I got to know really well over the course of the week. And the people that I've gone on ASB with are some of my closest friends at St. Mary's. So I would say if at any point you're like, I don't know who, like anyone at church, I don't think I'm going to do it. I say do it anyway, because it's really been amazing to be able to build my faith community here at St. Mary's. So yeah, I also was worried that I was going to be I was going to like have to go somewhere where I'd be put in an uncomfortable situation. I was like, what if I can't speak the language, or what if I have to do something I've never done before? Or talk to someone new. And I was really nervous about that. But then the more I thought about it, the more I realized like, this is what God is calling me to do. God's going to put me in uncomfortable situations, and that's where I'm really going to grow close to him, and I'm just going to grow as a person. So I'm very glad that I decided to join ASB and sign up each year. So I'm going to quickly talk about the two trips that I've gone on. So I went to LA, which is where we saw a few pictures from. And that trip is a beautiful mix of like immersion and service. So you really do get to be immersed in the culture, in the community. We stayed at a school. We got to hang out with the school kids. We did homestays. We got to hang out with families in the projects. And we just got to like do a lot of really cool things within the community. But then a lot of the service that we also got to do was with the homeless population in LA. It's kind of ridiculous there. I looked it up the other day, and it's like 58,000 homeless people or something like that within the county of LA. And so it's just incredible to be able to serve those people. We did a lot of like soup kitchen type things where we're serving people food. And it was incredible to just see the faces of people living in LA and also just within the community. So I think that trip and the LA trip really helped me to see the beauty in the people of God's family. It was just incredible. And then the second trip that I went on this past year was to Apopka, Florida. And this is a little bit more of an immersion trip. We did do some service, which was we went out into the field. So Apopka, Florida has a large Hispanic population, and it's like a farming community. So we got to actually like go out into the fields. We got our hands dirty. We were pulling weeds. We were picking Brussels sprouts. I didn't know how a Brussels sprout grew, but I learned. It's really cool. It's like a little bush thing. Anyway, so we got to like do a little bit of service work, but that didn't seem to mean as much. Like a farmer has, I don't even know how big an acre is, but thousands of acres that they have to farm. And, we were just there for an afternoon, and we'd pick like a couple square feet of weeds or something like that. And so it didn't seem like we were helping, or like the service wasn't the important part of the trip. It was really getting to stand in solidarity with the community that we stayed with. We stayed in host families, so we really got to like hear firsthand personal accounts of immigration and facing marginalization. So I think that trip really helped me learn what it meant to just stand in solidarity with God's people. We really got to put faces to the people that we think of as marginalized in certain groups. But these trips are absolutely amazing, and there's a million stories that I could tell from each trip, and I know that each of your trips are going to have a million stories as well.
Thank you for sharing, Laura. That was wonderful. Ryan, would you like to go next and talk a little bit about your experience?
Yeah. Wow, Laura, that's a lot of great experiences, a lot of very similar feelings on that, or similar experiences that I've had on ASB. Freshman year, I was interested in ASB because like I did some mission trips and service trips in high school, and I really liked the construction heavy kind of stuff. So freshman year, I went to Meridian, Mississippi, and we worked with Habitat for Humanity and we put up drywall and like insulation and like worked on a physical house and everything. And that was a really cool experience. Just, I don't know, road tripping down to Mississippi, a lot of good memories in that car ride. And for me as a freshman, that was just like, that just became my community after coming back. Like that was my like core friend group almost, and like I'm still friends with a lot of those people today. So it's like that was like from that side of things, ASB is an incredible way to meet people. Just there's no better way to connect and to grow close with someone than to like just serve alongside them. So then I've also been to Flint, Michigan, and Flint and Detroit, Michigan as well. And both of those trips were pretty different from the construction work I'm used to, but I found that those were incredible trips as well. Just like so many opportunities just to engage in those communities, to work alongside people who were just sacrificing their lives for like to hold up to serve their cities and everything. Flint was just a very moving trip for me, working in the school system there and just seeing how broken it was. Detroit was it was heartbreaking seeing the level of poverty in some areas as well. But both those trips just gave me so much hope for both of those cities. And I was so grateful to be able to go on those trips because I realized that like Detroit and Flint are less than an hour away from here, and there's so much opportunity to serve there, and there's so much need like so close to our home still. So that's something I really left with on those trips, and just being able to learn just how to enter into and like enter into the margins with people and like stand in solidarity with them has been just an incredible opportunity that ASB has given me. And like Laura said, just so many memories and so many funny stories as well. Just spending a week with your peers just is a really, really good time. So I'm very excited for ASB this year.
Thanks, Ryan. That was wonderful. Really appreciate it. Rose Carmel, would you like to share a little bit?
Yeah, that sounds good. So my name's Rose Carmel. I am a senior, and I've been on 3 ASB trips so far. My freshman year was actually through MAC ASB, and then the sophomore, junior were through St. Mary. And so sophomore year, when I was getting ready, I signed up for ASB just on a whim. My sister had also gone to U of M, so it was kind of like with her guidance I was like, okay, I'll do it once. And I remember as the trip kept getting closer and closer, I like knew no one at St. Mary prior to this. And so kind of echoing a little bit what Laura was talking about, but I got so nervous the week ahead of going on ASB that I was coming up with like excuses in my head, like, okay, I'm not gonna go, or like, what if I pretended I was sick? And I was like, okay, that's ridiculous. But like I was genuinely did not want to go whatsoever. And then I remember we were on like the car ride to Baltimore that year, we had a snowstorm, so it took like a ridiculous amount of hours over how long we were supposed to get there. And I remember the beginning of the car ride, I was so tense, like, so like, okay, I'm not gonna like talk that much, like I'm not gonna get to know these people that well, like I'm just like very on edge. I don't know. I was nervous. But by the end of that very snowy car ride, I just remember like being very relaxed and being like, okay, this could be interesting, like let's see where it goes. And even that night when we got there, I remember seeing the schedule for Baltimore, and we were like volunteering and serving places, like a lot of different places each day. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is so much. But needless to say, this isn't trying to scare you. This is to say, by the end of it, I remember like well, first of all, it was like by far my favorite week of college, some of the most meaningful experiences of my college experience. So like I look forward to this week throughout the entire year. So that's kind of the transition that I've had since that beginning of the trip till now. But going back to Baltimore, I remember like I remember seeing like it was like 3 or 4 nights of that one week that we were volunteering at this one place, and I was like, oh my gosh, if only we had just like that one evening break, right? And the first day we got there, it was like chaotic because it was this homeless shelter that we were serving dinner at, and it was just like not like rightfully so, it was just like a place of a lot of hurt and suffering and pain. So like not a lot of happiness and joy just like flowering off of everywhere. Like it was a tough spot. And so I'm really grateful like we were even like invited into that space, and just like I was grateful for them sharing that space with us. But that was a place where I was like, oh, if we just like didn't have to come here, this would be like such a nicer day. And a lot of people just had mixed reactions leaving there. Because it was like a taxing, like very tough situation to like volunteer and take part of. But so me and my co-site leader, there wasn't like a ton of us. I mean, no, there wasn't a ton for all of us to do. So there was like a little bit of extra time. So some people were also just annoyed that like we're here, I just want to help. Like, why can't I do stuff? And I was like, okay, let's just go talk to people. And so me and Matt Rose, my co-site leader at the time, we were like, all right, let's just like walk around and see what people are up to. So we just started like sitting at the tables and talking to people while they were eating, which was a crazy experience because it was just like such mixed reactions. Some people ignored us, but some people we had these really amazing conversations with, that were like so impactful, especially with this one individual. I ended up seeing him every night and just having these sitting down there almost the whole shift. Thankfully we had a group that were covering all the other things that we had to do, but it was just like very, very powerful to sit and engage with this individual throughout the week and just kind of talk about his life and my life. And I was so nervous to A, go on that trip, and B, just like branch out and go talk to strangers while they were eating dinner who were like, did not, like, I was just like, why did they want me coming around talking to them? But it was like a crazy impactful experience. And I think that the main thing that I would try to communicate through that like brief little story is just the fact that ASB is like all about getting out of your comfort zone, and when you start to feel that happening, like go to it, because that's when the learning experience is, and that's when it's going to be really impactful and powerful. Like all these people are describing their trips have been, and that's why all of us have been every single year in college for our spring break trip. My other thing is that it is 1 week of your school year. So if you haven't been on it before, just go, because you're not really going to lose out on much, especially this year. It's not even on spring break, so you can't have FOMO for that. But I would just say it is 1 week. Just try it. And I like can almost promise you, you will not regret it. And it'll be like, if you go through past experience, anyone here can talk about their trip. It has been like a very powerful and impactful experience, especially for me, and I know for many others. So I would just say you have nothing to lose, so try it.
Thank you so much, Rose Carmel. That was really great. Elena, would you like to share a little bit about your experiences?
Yes, I can do that. My name's Elena. I'm a junior, and this will be my third ASB trip this year. I'm going to El Salvador with Laura. And I've been to Chicago and LA, which I think are not, both of them are not trips this year, but they both were great opportunities. Chicago was a little bit more service oriented, and we went to a different organization each day. And so I think every day there was like a new theme to focus on, like immigration, poverty, and others. And then LA, definitely there was a service aspect as well, but it was a little more immersive, and we stayed with the same community, which was something I really enjoyed. And kind of similar to what other people were saying, my freshman year, I signed up in October, and I really cannot tell you why, because I think I had gone to one Ignite dinner, and somehow I decided that I wanted to do this. And leading up to it, I was definitely questioning this decision because I don't think I had talked to anyone at St. Mary's. And I vaguely knew people, and I saw who I was going with, and I was the only freshman, and the rest were upperclassmen. And needless to say, I was definitely questioning it, but I obviously I enjoyed it, and I came back, and I'm here for round 3, so I definitely recommend it. But I think the reason I came back is because of the community that you build during ASB, not only with your fellow students, because I've met some of my closest and like I would say deepest friendships, not really sure how to describe it, but definitely through this program. But then also the community you build with the people that you live amongst and the people that you are accompanying. I definitely think ASB is life-changing. And one thing that it does make you grow, because I think in college it's so easy to think that your problems are so big and so overwhelming, but it's like getting outside of yourself and recognizing bigger issues is something that I'm grateful to have the experience to have learned about, and to come back home and implement what I've learned into my actions back home as well. So yeah, I definitely recommend everyone goes. I'm really excited, so hope to see you all there.
Thank you so much, Elena. I really appreciate it. And Claire, would you like to round out the testimonials?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Claire, I'm a senior, and I've been on ASB for 3 years now. I went to, this year I'm leading the Selma trip with Ryan. And I've been to Flint, Michigan, I've been to Wheeling, Virginia, and El Paso. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about El Paso, just to kind of keep it short and sweet. The two pictures on the bottom are from last year in El Paso. It was really just a mind-blowing experience. It was an immersion trip, so we didn't really do much of any volunteering. We just listened, and sometimes that was super taxing on your emotions, and because everything was just so heartbreaking about like the immigration policies and everything. But I think that what stuck out to me the most about this trip was just like the connections that we made with the people. So we went to Ciudad Juarez one day in Mexico, and we went, one of the experiences in Juarez that stuck out to me was when we went to a school. A woman had started the school on her own. Because there's not very many opportunities in Juarez to get to like go to college after, like it's hard to like develop your skills enough to college. And she's all by herself. I think she's the only teacher, and she teaches like 200 students in shifts. So it's really, really insane. But before she started the school, she worked in a factory in Juarez, and she was actually injured on the job very severely, and they did not pay any of her medical bills, and they fired her afterwards. And it was just so heartbreaking to me. But I just like remember seeing the joy in her face and how motivated she was and how happy she was to be helping and to be like doing amazing things that it just inspired me so much. And then one more thing is that I just remember when we got there, we stayed at a shelter for immigrants that had just come. They're staying for a little while, and there was a lot of kids there, and it was so cool because none of the kids spoke English, but I knew a little Spanish, and so we figured it out, and we ended up playing freeze tag and all of these fun things. And half of our group didn't know what was happening, but it was so fun just because we were all there and we were running around, and it just was such a cool experience. And I feel like we made a really like tight bond with the kids there. So those are my most memorable experiences, and I love ASB, and everybody should sign up.
Thank you, Claire. And thank you everyone who shared. That was really wonderful and eye-opening. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone in attendance does too. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how this year is going to look a little bit different, and then we'll go into a Q&A question panel. So obviously, we are living through a pandemic in a very different situation than years past. So ASB is going to look differently this year. As we said before, trips will take place the week of May 2nd to May 9th instead of during spring break, because there is no spring break. And trips are contingent on the site's ability and comfortability hosting us, especially going into this winter season and what is supposed to be a large second wave. Things might change, might shuffle around. So St. Mary, Father Mark and I, as well as a lot of the administration team, are constantly working to evaluate the situation, and will adjust, change, or cancel trips as necessary to ensure the health and safety of our participants, so all of you, as well as our site communities, because the primary function of ASB is to have a positive interaction and experience for all involved. And if there's any risk of transmission or exposure, we don't want to hurt our communities and our participants. So if you're on a trip and you may be going out of state or maybe on an international trip and things change, we are having sort of a backup plan that we're going to focus on a primary local week of service instead of sort of an abroad or out of the state week of service if things do look very poorly over the next few months, but we're optimistic and we think things will work out well. Most, if not every site that we've talked to has said that they would like to have us in May, regardless of how things go, but a lot of things are still touch and go, depending on how the winter goes. And I realized that I never introduced myself. So my name is Will, and I am a senior this year, and I am the alternative spring break intern for St. Mary's Student Parish. So I work with Father Mark and a large group of interns to just help out with a lot of the stuff that St. Mary does in our campus ministry community. So it is my primary job to sort of help organize and run all of our alternative spring break programs. So that's what I do. That's who I am. And I also forgot to mention, you don't just get sort of thrown out on these trips out of nowhere with a group of people that you never met. We do take a lot of time making sure that our groups are deliberate and intentional when we make group trips based off the application. And then we have sort of a 3-month, 2-month period of formations where you'll meet once a week with your group, and you'll talk about different sort of educational aspects of what our trips are supposed to do. We talk about Catholic social teaching, respect and dignity of human life, stuff like that, as we go forward, and making sure that we're bringing this attitude of service and compassion with us on our trips. So there's a lot of bonding and education that takes place before going out on your trip, so that you're not just sort of thrown out there and left to deal with everything. We do prepare you for these trips so you can have the most positive, wonderful experience possible. So that is a lot of me talking. Any questions at all about anything? We would love to answer those for you.
So the sites for this year, at least currently, were the ones listed in the slide?
Yep, these right here. So we decided those a few months ago. We had to change our LA trip because of the nature of the trip. They weren't as comfortable hosting us because you do live in community with people throughout the week. So we're actually doing this new trip right here for Selma, Alabama. We're going to be visiting there and doing a lot of really cool stuff there. And we're still in the process of figuring out exactly what that will look like, but that trip is taking its place. Good question. Any other questions?
Would you be able to describe what the application process looks like for people who've never done it before?
Yes, heck yeah, I would. So the application process, application isn't necessarily the right word. You give us a lot of information about yourself, and we use that information to decide where your best fit for a trip sort of would be. We rarely ever have to turn participants away because we have a lot of trips and we always have good numbers showing up for those. We want to make sure that everyone who is able and willing to go on a trip has the option to. So those applications are more to just get a pulse of what you're looking for in a trip, which trips and sites you're interested in. And then after you fill out that application, we go through an interview process. So likely it'll be Father Mark and I and some of our site leaders who will interview you just to sort of see, how you feel about the trips in general, which trips you're most inclined towards, what kind of service and issues you're interested in working with. And then we'll make decisions on which trips we think would be the best fit for you. We'll offer you a spot and you could accept or decline that spot. And then once everyone has accepted a spot, we move forward with formations and group bonding. Great question, Laura. Thank you for asking that. And the application will likely be released in the next few weeks. We're trying to look at it this year and make some adjustments based on COVID. But we'll release it probably within the next month, and then it'll be open for about a month and a half, and then we'll start our application interview process, or our interview process. The application would have been out by then. So, yeah. Any other questions? These are all great and wonderful and informative.
So, Will, in order for people to make their choice, will there be a description of each of the various sites and what's going to happen there?
Yeah. So we have a section on the St. Mary website that has a lot of information about alternative spring break. So it'll be there that you'll find our formation schedule once we post it, forms for everything we need for ASB, so emergency contacts, health insurance, stuff like that. But it also includes testimonials and site descriptions, and we will be updating that very, very soon so that you can read a more in-depth description of each of these trips, sort of gauge which one you might be interested in. You can apply to as many trips as you'd like and mark your interest in them, or you can apply to as few as you would like, but we do reserve the right to put you where we think you would fit best. But we will have site descriptions up there very soon, probably by the end of this week. Great question, Valdemar.
For people who haven't been, what would you say the price breakdown is for ASB?
Yeah, so there is participant costs for each trip based on, the type of transportation you take to get there. So driving trips are not as expensive as flying trips. The only flying trip that we will be doing this year is to El Salvador, an international trip, in an effort to reduce sort of contamination, exposure issues. We're going to have
and El Paso.
And El Paso. Forgot about that one. Yeah, you're not driving to El Paso. You'll be flying to El Paso. So El Salvador and El Paso will be our two flying trips. Everyone else will be driving. So flying trips will cost a little bit more because of airline tickets and insurance stuff related to that than driving trips. And then El Salvador, our international trip, is going to cost a little bit more compared to the rest of them because there's a lot that goes into making an international trip happen with our contact down in El Salvador, Chris Baz. So yeah, the international trips are more expensive. We're only doing one this year, and the flying trips are more expensive than the driving trips, but they're all pretty similar, and we will get sort of price estimates out to you for those site descriptions as well, so you can make decisions based on that. But great question. Thank you for asking. Anybody else? Anything about ASB, St. Mary? The week, October, exciting stuff. It's spooky season.
Just a heads up about a couple of these sites. Clinton, Iowa is a large community. That's a community of people who live together, many of whom have physical and mental handicaps, and the people that live with them and care for them to a certain extent. So that's one where they're going to be very careful about taking people. So we really don't know how that's going to shake out. It's a great trip, and it's a great thing thing to experience a large community, but they're also going to be very careful about safety and health of people that live there. Now, Zaley's home used to be a place called Maggie's Place, so it's just changed. I think it still does exactly the same thing. It's working with women who are pregnant, but we have not heard back from anybody there, despite a couple attempts to reach out. So we're not sure what's going on there, and we will definitely let people know when we find out.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that. Yeah, so there will be a lot more information about each site up on the website very soon, so you can take a look at those descriptions, learn more about the different trips. But does anybody have any final questions? I do realize it is kind of late on a Monday night and it's kind of midterm season, so you probably have homework and things to do, so I don't want to keep you all forever. As much as I love seeing all of your faces.
How many people to go in like ASB altogether?
Excellent question. So in years past, it has been exponentially growing. We've had more and more trips every year and more participants every year. So I think this last year we had about 150. Is that right, Father Mark, or is that?
I think we had about 100 last year.
Okay, 100. Yeah, I was very off. But there's usually 8 to 10 people per trip. Some trips will have more, some trips will have less, depending on who is interested in what. And this year, we're trying to get a gauge on how many people would still like to participate in alternative spring break programs, because we do understand this is a much different world situation than we have been in the last few years. So we're anticipating a little bit of a drop off in participation because some people don't necessarily want to do trips after graduation, after the school year ends, or with everything that's going on, depending on how well our country has handled COVID at that point. So it is kind of up in the air, but usually around 100.
Okay. Yeah.
Good question.
And some sites only will take a certain amount of people. So like Clinton, I think caps at 6 or 8 people. Whereas like El Salvador, they'll take up to like 20 people. So it also depends on the site.
Yeah, Chris Boz loves big delegations. They were kind of making fun of us last year for having a small group. But yeah, if anybody has any questions at all, please feel free to stay on the call. If you don't, it was really nice to see you. If you have any questions at all about ASB in the future, you can reach out to me. My email is willover@umich.edu. You can find me in the UMich email directory, or you can contact anyone at St. Mary and they give you my information as well.
Is the interest form still going on?
Yeah, would you like to fill out the interest form? I have it queued up right here.
Sure.
Excellent. I'll send it in the chat. So there's the interest form. You can fill that out if you'd like. It would be very helpful to us if you did, just so we can get more of a concrete feel on how comfortable people are with everything. But yeah, thank you two for coming, you three for coming. Hi, Lauren. And it was really nice to see all of you and meet you.
Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Will.
Yeah.
All right, spread the word. Tell people all about it.